now we are going straight to the conversation. Now, last week, the federal government, through the Ministry of Power, in conjunction, or if you like, partnership with the USAID, that is the United States Agency for International Development, signed a memorandum of understanding of 115 billion naira, to reshape the power sector and also to ensure accessibility and, a better, if you like, outlook in our power sector in the country. And this is indeed a critical milestone, according to Nigerians privy to this particular MOU. And we're going to talk more about this very shortly. We're being joined this morning by Engineer Chinedum Ukabiala. He is the commissioner at Enugu State Electricity Regulatory Commission. He joins us this morning. Good morning, Engineer Ukabiala.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Engineer. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Your thoughts on this particular MOU? It was signed last week, and of course, we know the possibilities therein. But walk us through the arrangements, first of all, or the provisions, and then, of course, how it would, in fact, lead to, better, or if you like, easy accessibility to power in the country.
Well, usually, the USAID, when they provide a fund, the fund is administered through technical assistance programs. And technical assistance program means they will probably give you experts that will help you in structuring whatever areas you want the money utilized. Then in the process, if it's fully utilized by providing specific areas of need, then it will go a very long way in solving various problems we have in the power sector.
Exactly would it translate, to access to affordable power for Nigerians? Because that is indeed an immediate worry at the moment, considering the recent tariff hike.
Okay, when you talk about affordable power, it is not just something that you say people can easily afford. It also depends on how much it costs to produce the power. And then probably to the extent government is able to subsidize. So that's really what I understand by affordability, because you cannot produce power for 10 naira and then you want to sell it for 5 naira, and then talk about affordability and also talk about electricity market. Because when you talk about electricity market, definitely there have to be trading, buying and selling. So, but the important matter is with this fund that is being provided, if it's well utilized, you will be able to solve some problems that are needed in the sector. For instance, if they give a technical assistant that is able to do a job that will have probably paid somebody to do, then invariably there is bound to be a reduction in costs for training, costs for some special support. And once you have that, then you can now probably have a lower tariff based on the cost element that have been taken care of by the fund that was provided free to the government.
All right. Joining us now is Mr. Najib Mahmood Abdul Salam. He's the founder and CEO at TSIL and also an energy expert. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Najib. Can you hear me?
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Also get your thoughts with regards to the MOU signed by the federal government and the USAID. Engineer Chinedum, who is our first guest, has just spoken about it, giving us his thoughts, albeit quite briefly, with regards to some of the provisions and, how it would immediately impact Nigerians. But I want to hear from you as an industry stakeholder as well, what your thoughts regarding this is. As I asked Engineer Chinedum, Nigerians at the moment aren't particularly, none the better, so to use that expression, with regards to affordable electricity. Last week or the week before, rather, we only heard that it's been, implemented in certain portions of the country. So, given this particular MOU, in your view, as an expert, how exactly would this benefit Nigerians as far as accessibility to power is concerned?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning once again. Now, when we talk of MOU, it's just a memorandum of understanding that both parties have certain milestones that they need to achieve, based on an agreed terms and conditions. And when you talk of how it will impact on the lives of Nigerians as far as power sector is concerned, or rather accessibility and affordability of the power, then you are talking of how immediate will this MOU come into play, and how will it accelerate power provision in the country. So many things are being done in that regard, really, to make sure that there is affordable and accessible power solution in Nigeria almost immediately prior to the signing of this MOU, and even after signing the MOU. Other steps that needs to come into play will take a little time for us to begin to see this manifest into reality in terms of having the power solution in place. But more importantly, out of the MOU is the fact that there will be developers that will come in and develop power solutions that which is embedded power solution, which means if there will be grids under the grid, then there will be those that will do off grid. There will be those that will all actually do mini grids to service unserved and underserved areas, so that all those places will have sustainable power solution within their domain and at an affordable rate. For instance, those that will do the embedded, if you're on band A, which you pay about 209 naira now, you may end up paying about 150 to 190 naira per kilowatt hour, which means the cost of your electricity is going to come down, because you are now getting electricity from renewable sources at a cheaper rate under the grid for a certain period of time. So this is what the MOU eventually will translate in.
Now, Mr. Najib has talked about, I'm coming to you now, Engineer Chinedu. Mr. Najib has talked about, some of the expectations, if you like, from this MOU. And I'm going to, come to you now in this regard. Let's talk a little bit about our supply. Oh, by the way, he also mentioned, alternatives to what we have currently. Now, let's marry that with our supply arrangements, or our current supply arrangement. And Nigeria has more than 70% of its electricity from thermal power plants that run on gas. The remaining amount of electricity, as you were, comes from hydropower generating plants. Time and again, we've had issues with the gas suppliers because of debts owed. Is it time now for us to pay attention to other supply means, or if you like, alternatives, as you were?
Well, just these things are not that easy as you say it. Yes, there's need to pay attention to other supply needs. That is when we talk about energy mix, most especially for security reasons, so that when the gas is down, you have enough of other sources to be able to run your program. When the water levels come down, you will still have enough to generate from renewable and so on and so forth. So it is quite good to have a very good and robust energy mix in every energy system. So there is no argument about that. But getting this thing into place is actually where the problem is, because it takes time to plan, and also takes time to execute. Power business is not usually emergency. And if it's emergency, then you can't talk about affordability because there won't be any room for affordability. So it is nice that we have a very good energy mix in the country so that you have some quantum of power from thermal plant, you have some from hydro plant, you have some from renewable sources of different kinds. But these things need to be enhanced and promoted to make sure they are there in right proportion so that if there's any shortage in any of them, the other ones can cover up.
Harnessing them and the fact that it does take time and all of that, an effort to execute, and then you end up that with harnessing them. So by that very token, are you saying that so far we haven't particularly harnessed what we have with regards to generating electricity? Because we can sit here and talk about this all day, but in the end, we aren't particularly where we're supposed to be as far as that particular or this particular issue is concerned. If we start to make comparisons with our, West African counterparts or even down south, where they have 4 or 5 times more than what we generate. It's indeed an issue. So how much longer do we have to wait with regards to the manifestations of these things coming to fruition? Can you tell us more?
Okay, so if you talk about energy planning, it takes almost up to 10 to 15 years to plan for energy. So what it means actually, if you are planning to have probably 10 megawatts in the next 10 years, you start the planning now. And during the process of planning, you also consider the energy mix that you probably want to encourage. Some companies use nuclear, and nuclear is not something you just build a power plant overnight, because before you can go into nuclear power plant, there are a lot of processes you have to go through. There are a lot of certifications you have to go through internationally. And you also have to get your neighboring countries to agree to allow you to develop that because of the risk and challenges of nuclear weapon. So these are some of those processes that need to take place. You cannot just go to your neighboring country and say, I want something, and you think it will get immediately. It also takes processes. So that's actually where the challenge is, being able to have a coordinated and properly planned program that will give you certain set up power at a time. Let me give an instance. I know the Zungeru power plant that is just about running now is something that was started during the Obasanjo period when they wanted to increase power. So you can't just build a power plant overnight. That's just where the point is. And then once you start early to plan based on what you have projected for the future, then it becomes much more easier to accommodate because as issues are coming up, it is being resolved along the way to make sure that at the set time, you have the power capacity you want to add to the system. So that's actually where the challenge is.
All right. Now let's come to you, Mr. Najib. If you're still there and you can hear me, this question is for you. Let's veer on a tangent a little bit. Talk about policies and how they're made and how they affect us as you were. Some experts have opined a lack of policy coordination in the power sector with sundry bottlenecks in the industry. How do we tackle this? Mr. Najib, if you're there, can you hear me?
I'm here. I can hear. I'm here. I'm with you. Well, policy issues have always been a bottleneck, and a lot of somersault in even the policy formulations in the country. For instance, a couple of years when the drive for alternative energy began, there is the issue of those that will be, grid connected, and about 14 companies came into being, were vetted, and were even Embed, that is Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, even signed a power purchase agreement with them, at a certain price, only for the government along the way to turn around and say that, no, look, we can no longer afford this. Those agreements that we signed with you are now null and void. So that's really significantly affected it significantly affected the energy market in Nigeria, particularly through alternative, through renewable energy sources. we had investors ready to come into the country to invest hugely in that space. But because of lack of consistency in the policy, they had to back away. But then what it did to us again is it also helped accelerate in developing the mini grids, the off grids, micro grids and what have you, as against those large power plants that will have been connected to the grid until recently when the government now started investing that. And we have the first grid connected project of 10 megawatts by Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority done in Kano, Chala, which I think is the first grid connected power plant from solar in Nigeria. And of course, there are other development agencies and the DISCO that are working on getting that particular grid connected to be expanded up to 20 megawatts. So yes, consistency in policy will really help in stabilizing the market. We are now talking of an energy mix of 30-30 by year 2030. What that means is there should be an energy mix from alternative sources of at least 30% of what we utilize in the country coming from the alternative sources by year 2030. Already we're in 2024. We're halfway down the ladder of 2024. So how far are we in achieving that energy mix of 30% from now to year 2030? So we'll literally have 6.5 years left. And what are the milestones recorded towards achieving that? Are we really getting our energy mix of 30% from the alternative sources? What percentage are we really getting at? What percentage do we really have? And then, of course, there is the issue of the net zero by year 26. Where are we as far as that is concerned? So until and unless we're able to streamline our policy direction, we'll continue to, be jumping from one side of the leg and then to the other side, But the important thing is developers are coming in and are developing alternative energy solutions in the country, even though we lack a comprehensive database that will tell you that this is how much of electricity is being generated from alternative sources in the country. So yes, we need to have a streamlined policy direction.
Engineer Chinedum, you want to respond to what Mr. Najib has said with regards to streamlining policy, because I had asked him about, the fact that, or I asked rather, about the fact that there's been a little bit of a, an imbalance, if you like, in policy in the sector, or a lack of coordination therein. So how do we achieve a streamlined, process so that, Nigerians will be better off for it?
Yeah, with Nigeria has very good policy arrangements. I will probably give them credit for that once it's developed. But the biggest challenge we have in making them go through is having an impact assessment of whatever policies we have in the country. It is during the process to be able to assess how far you have gone, how well you have done, where you have challenges, and where you have derailed. Then, as time goes on, you may need to review those policies to reflect the findings of the impact assessment that is done. And that is where I think you have a very big problem. So if nobody is responsible in doing that, or probably the entity that is responsible in doing that is not taken seriously, then we always have policy somersaults along the line. Like what Najim talked about, the solar stuff. Fortunately, I was in NET as at that time, and we reviewed those things and made a recommendations as a government agency, a regulatory agency, that it is not proper for us to have more than 10% of installed capacity on renewable because of the impact of renewable systems. One of them is intermittency. If you're going to push for more renewable than the base load systems, then what it means is that once there's any drop, which you cannot determine when it's going to occur, then the system will go blackout. So along the line, those were taken into considerations, and then at the end of the day, we will discover that it was too late, because if this impact were done at the end of the day, questions were asked and answers raised, you will have been able to streamline that project. At the end of the day, it didn't turn out well, even though it was well intended to be able to help get more power from renewable source. So the major problem actually we have, in my own opinion, is having this impact assessment done periodically to see how far these policies are going, how much we are getting from what is intended, and if there are deviations, if there are issues, so that when spray reviews are done, then you are more focused in achieving the target that is set.
I'm going to stay with you, engineer, and just veer on a tangent just a little bit to last year when Mr. President, signed into law the Electricity Act. Nigeria holds the highest electricity access deficit globally, with 90 million Nigerians lacking electricity. This essentially, I want to believe, and many other reasons, is what led to Mr. President signing that particular act into law, which is aimed at rapidly providing quality electricity access to all Nigerians, thereby addressing the country's status as having the world's highest electricity access deficit. Now, with that piece of legislation and all the other policies, including the one we're talking about today, how do all of these entities come together to address the immediate electricity challenges of the average Nigerian? How does it trickle down?
Yeah, I would probably want to commend the president for this law. This law, one of the key things about the law is giving the states powers to go into power business, develop their own electricity market. The good news, being one of the first or say pioneer sub-regional electricity market, is that it is going to rapidly improve power supply. Because currently in Enugu State, we are getting so much attention about people who want to play into the field, develop power plants, develop the network, extend the network, and improve the network. And most importantly, many of them are showing also interest in helping in going to the rural areas, provide power. So I would say it's one of the best things probably that have happened in this country, because if all the states are probably going to get the attention we're getting and they are moving on, then before you know it, rapidly, you will just, they'll power everywhere. Fortunately, also, we have a country to copy from. India did the same thing, had their reform, just like we had earlier on, and then had one national regulator. At a point, they now allow the provinces or probably state-like arrangements that before you know it, their position ramped up even to more than 5 times what they had in a very, very short time. So, and I see the same thing playing now, because the level of attention and interest people are paying in Enugu State particularly is actually a confirmation that this is the right step in the right direction, in my own view.
Now, Engineer Chinedum has talked about, what applies in the market these days vis-a-vis private individuals or private players wanting to come into the market to play. Now, Mr. Najib, as an industry player yourself, what would you like to see differently by way of maybe policies or, anything of the sort that would encourage you as a power sector player to want to get into certain portions of the country to play in the sector or to play in the market? Let's hear from you.
Want to see differently. There are really so many things that we would like to see differently coming into play in the market. But as it were right now, we are happy with what is happening in the market, especially the 2023 Electricity Act, taking out electricity from the exclusive list to concurrent, thereby allowing the subnationals to come into the market and play, set up their own regulatory bodies, set up their own agencies, and of course, for them to provide enabling environment for power sector developers to for energy developers to actually, provide electricity within those regions. So, there is a lot of development ongoing within that space. But what we would like to see is tariff and taxes that is being charged by customs when you import materials. Most of these most of our contemporaries in Africa, they have almost zero tax for alternative energy machineries or equipment that is brought into their country for production. But in Nigeria, we're being charged. So we'd like to see government coming in to say that, look, customs stop charging so taxes on alternative energy items. That will really help in accelerating
All right, thank you very much, Mr.
energy
Najib.
production
Now,
in
let's
the country.
quickly go to Engineer Chinedum and get your thoughts. Now, you're a commissioner at the State Electricity Regulatory Commission in Enugu State. I'm going to ask you this one specifically, and if you can give us an answer, or give us your thoughts rather, in somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute, that would be fantastic. There have been issues of transparency, in the market. Some players alike have expressed worry with regards to some transparency issues in the electricity market. What do you make of this? And if there are at all, to start with, how do we get around this? In very few words, please.
Yeah, when you say transparency, I'm not really very clear what you mean by transparency in the listed market, because actually the person who ensures there's transparency in the listed market is the electricity regulator, because he had to put in place measures and provisions and regulations and rules that will ensure there's no abuse in the market. So once you have a very strong regulator in a place, then there won't be any issues of transparency in the market. That's what I'll probably say. So any state coming up should make sure they have the right people in place to make sure that they have effective regulator in place to make sure there's no issues of transparency in the market.
Thank you very much, Engineer Chinedum Ukabiala, Commissioner at Enugu State Electricity Regulatory Commission. Many thanks, sir, for joining us on the program this morning, and also many thanks to you, Mr. Najib Mahmood Abdul Salam. Hopefully we can have you join us another time. Mr. Abdul Salam is the founder, CEO of TSIL. Unfortunately, time is not particularly on our side. We would have taken some more thoughts from you, gentlemen. But again, thank you both for joining us on the program this morning. Hopefully we can talk another time. Right.
Thank you for having us.
Still Market News Television this morning, and before we go, we're going to take a quick look at the exchange rate on the market this morning, or this Monday, that is the 15th of July 2024. The dollar is officially selling, that is at the CBDs, at 1,515 naira, and then of course in the parallel market 1,617 naira, and officially the official markets, the pound sterling sells for 1,994 naira, as opposed to the parallel market selling at 2,100 naira. Now the euro is selling at 1,679 naira, and match that against what is being sold at the parallel market at 1,765 naira. So just in case you want to find your way around, the market, this is some useful information at your fingertips to make that navigation possible. We have been talking today on the program about the Nigeria USAID, that's the federal government USAID Memorandum of Understanding to provide to the tune of 115 billion naira to provide a secure, transparent, and also affordable power for Nigerians. Of course, we've given you some insights with regards to what the government intends to do with these and how Nigerians will be better off as far as this particular memorandum of understanding is concerned. And hopefully in the near future, we will see that playing out. Many thanks again for joining us. I am David Chiedu. Do stay tuned to SOUQ News Television. Have a wonderful day.